There's a couple of people I may not have met yet. So my name is Knut Staring. I'm working in Oslo, the University of Oslo, and I've been doing DHS2 for a long time. So hopefully you recognize the dashboard, and you've seen that we have maps on the dashboard. Those maps are actually clickable. If you click on one of those maps, well, the couple of things you can do, as you see here, you can view full size. It'll just give you the same picture just blown up. And you can remove it, you can share it and all those things, but if you click on it, it'll take you to the GIS module. The GIS module is sometimes a bit slow to start. Actually, it's often a bit slow to start because it uses a lot of JavaScript libraries that it has to get from the server. So especially the first time you start it, it'll take some time. And sometimes you wonder whether it's actually going to come at all because it seems very, very slow. But once it has loaded, it is much faster. So let me just pretend to click it, or I can't click it, but it's not going to work because I'm now online. So I'm not using the local server right now, just because I want to show you one thing, and then I'll switch to the local server. So the reason, so if I click that one image that I pretended to click, then it'll take me to the GIS module, which is what you see here, and it'll show the same map in this interactive view. So what we're looking at is, of course, Sierra Leone, which is in West Africa. And because I'm online, I'm able to pull in Google Maps from the back end and from the internet. And usually you will be online, but not as you work. Okay, so sorry, I was online, but I'm no longer online. So you see, I have Google Maps here as a background picture, but I can't zoom out like I just tried because I've switched the network to be on the local network, so I'm no longer online. But in the background here is the Google Map, and on top of the Google Map, I have my GIS. So this is what Google gives me. And Google is one of the options that we have. We have three different map services that we can pull in as a background map. So one is this Google Street Map, which I'm sure many of you have seen before. The other option is the satellite picture also from Google. And the third option is something called OpenStreetMap, which is very similar to Google Service, looks very much like this Google Street Map, but it is a different resource, and it's actually an open resource that people can contribute to, and sometimes it's even better than Google. It depends on the country and whether someone has actually bothered to add data. If I switch it off, I don't see anything. So what you have here on the right-hand side is incredibly important because it shows you the different layers. In GIS, the concept of layers is very basic. A layer can be either a layer of images, of pictures, which is actually what Google is giving us. It gives us small rectangles of either satellite pictures or these road maps. So let me show you again. If I hold the mouse button, I can drag the map like this. I can go north, I can go east, and you see if I go too far, I get an error message in Spanish, and the reason it's Spanish is my browser is in Spanish. And it says, "We're sorry, we don't have any I don't have any map data. The browser doesn't have any map data for this part because I didn't load it when I was online. Now I'm offline, it still remembers this part, but it doesn't remember that part." because I never loaded it. You will not have this problem as long as you're online, and most of your servers will actually be online. So you can always get the background map. But I just wanted to show you what happens when you're offline, because actually today you're going to be offline when you work on the local server. The local server is not connected to the internet, so you won't be able to pull in these background maps. The background maps are very easy, so I think you can deal with them without actually testing too much. What's much more complicated are these other layers, which are going to be local. So you see we have 4 layers that we call thematic layers, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's where we're going to display our data. The data in DHIS are going to show up in the thematic layers. So they're basically going to be colored layers like the one that we already looked at. So let me bring it back. So I switch on thematic layer 1. So it's over to the left. So let me pull it back into the picture again. Okay, so this is one thematic layer. If I want to, I can have multiple thematic layers, but they will then be on top of each other. So you understand that if they are polygons like this and they cover the whole country, and you have many of them on top of each other, it may be quite difficult to see the difference between the different layers, right? But it is actually possible. And there is a number to the right of each layer. Each active layer has a number which you can vary. Right now it says 80. What does this mean? This means this has 80% transparency. So you can actually if you put a layer with if you put the percentage of transparency very low, you can actually see through the layer onto other layers that are underneath. So with this, it's possible to combine layers. It's also quite common to combine different types of layers. So let me just show you the transparency first. If I reduce this now a lot, let's see. If I reduce it to 41%, it's easier to see some of the things from the Google layer that's underneath. So for example, I can see this name here, Kenema. This comes from the Google layer. I can easily see it. I can also see the roads, which are those yellow lines. Probably very hard for you to see in the back. But you see the road network here. Of course, that extends into Sierra Leone. And I can see through it if I want to. It really depends on the value of this transparency layer. I mean, when I pull it down to 20%, it's almost completely transparent. And of course, then it's harder to see the colors. But this is something that really depends on what you want to see at the same time. So GIS with different layers allows you basically to compare different things in different layers at the same time, but it can also become very messy if you're not careful. If you have too many layers, it's almost impossible to see. It really depends. Sometimes it's actually preferable to just switch off the background layer because it's too noisy in some ways, and rather just concentrate on the thematic layer. Okay. So the difference, another difference between the background layer and the layers that come from DHIS is that the DHIS layers are interactive. So if I use my mouse and I just hover here, I can actually see the name. At the top here, I see that the name of this one is, this particular district is Mongo. And the value is 43.2. Oh, what do you mean value? Value of what? Well, the value is actually here in the legend. And someone said already, it's actually the coverage of ANC2 visits. Antenatal care visits, coverage for the whole year of 2013. So this is what we're looking at, and these are the categories. So the red color means less than 40%, and then there's a medium range, 40 to 60%, medium plus, high plus, and wonderful, up to 120%. Of course, usually we shouldn't have 120%, but it may be that this is a typical thing that can occur with an indicator that's based on population, because sometimes the population figures are not up to date, right? So there's even more people than more than 100%. But in this case, we've defined that anything that is more than 120% is actually something wrong. Like up to 1,000, I mean, if there's any value that's up to 1,000, we have actually put it as a blue color. And you've seen there's quite a lot that exceeds. In this particular case, maybe there's something seriously wrong with the population figures or with the ANC data, because there are many districts that have received the blue color. Well, it's actually not districts. They're called chiefdoms in Sierra Leone. Okay, so this legend. Okay, thank you. This legend on the right-hand side will always tell you what's there in a particular layer, and you have one legend for each layer. If we're getting it back at some point. Okay. So you see there's thematic layer 2 legend, 3 legend, 4 legend. Each thematic layer has a legend. There's also something called the facility layer legend, which is particularly for one layer that is the facilities. The background layers don't have a legend because they're just pictures. They're not interactive. So there's one more thing in the legend. There's these numbers here. It says low 3. So the red 3. Is that correct? Yeah, because there's actually just a number of polygons that have that color. So you see 1, 2, 3 polygons that have the red color. It just basically tells you how many of the, it's roughly 150 polygons here, 150 chiefdoms in Sierra Leone. So the 150 are divided in these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 classes. And I can see how many fall in each category, right? In each class. There's 3 in the low class, 23, 14, 21, 23, 39, 29. So in this particular case, we have 7 classes, 150 items, districts, or sorry, chiefdoms. And they just fall in different ways into those different classes. Let me go completely offline and to our local server instead. So if I just open it, because I'm not online, I actually will not have a background layer. So it'll look very bland like this. There's really nothing. But I have this nice list, which I call favorites, which are maps that people have made before me. These are the same maps that you can add to the dashboard. And they are also searchable. You notice that there's quite a bit, and this is just page 1 out of 3 pages. So there's a lot of ready-made maps that exist already. And that can be a good point of departure if you want to play around. You can start from scratch, or you can actually make use of one of these favorites. So let's see how we make use of them. Basically, you just click on the name, and up comes, hopefully, the map. So you see, this is similar. This is at the same level, the chiefdom level. Again, there's 150 polygons, but it's a different indicator. This is also related to ANC, but it's actually the insecticide-treated bed nets. Long-lasting insecticide-treated net coverage for the whole year of 2013. Again, it's this very similar legend because it's the same 7 classes. The numbers are different. Now we have 75. Half of the country is actually in the low category. So this is bad, you know. You see, basically the only areas that are doing quite okay is here in the west, close to the capital. Capital is actually here, not doing so well. But in this area seems to be doing well, but a little bit here in the south, but the rest of the country is pretty bad, right? So it quickly, the advantage of GIS is it quickly gives you an overview. What's the situation in the country? It can also, as we saw, give you a quick overview, what is the data quality? So if you get a lot of those blue fields that you have already defined as invalid, I mean, that's our own definition. We said anything above 120% is not good. There's something wrong. It could be the data, it could be the numerator, it could be the denominator. It could be both. But something is, you know, seriously wrong. And you see here it's not so bad. We only have 4 districts that fall in the invalid category. But at least we see which they are. We can easily, if we don't have the map, you know, completely in our heads, we can easily just go there and see that, okay, Nieni actually has 555%. It's a very high figure. So we should definitely try and investigate further. And one way to investigate is, okay, this is the district, oh, sorry, chiefdom, but the data actually come from the facilities. So let's go down and see, maybe there's one facility that is particularly bad, or maybe it's all of them. So one thing we can do is we just click, and we get this little context menu. It says 2 things. It says float up or drill down. So let's try float up first. So I'll try to float up. What does that mean? Okay, it means that I go 1 level up. So from the chiefdom level, I go up to the district level. In many countries, it would be going from the district up to the province, right? And then I see that here there's actually nothing blue. Nothing is blue at this level. It looks nice and green, this one, at that level. These areas of the country still look pretty bad, right? This doesn't look so bad. And this also looks nice, right? But those seems to be the only really good districts. This is maybe okay, but the whole middle of the country seems pretty bad. Okay, so let's go the other way and drill down. So again, I just click on it. It doesn't give me, now it doesn't really give me the float up option. It's grayed out, that option. And the reason for that is, okay, what would be the next level up? We are now at the so-called district level, which in many countries would be the province level. And then you go up, then it would be the whole country, right? In this particular case, we actually we haven't added in the database the outline of the country. Because usually it'll be quite boring. I mean, if you can have it, but maybe useful. I mean, the country could be green, or the country could be red, or the country could be blue. You know, if the country is blue, then the whole country is invalid. So it would make sense maybe to have it, but we actually didn't add the coordinates in the database, so we cannot float up. It just tells me that we don't have coordinates. So this is as far as we go. And in most cases, we're not so interested in the country level. But we are interested in going down from this district level down back to the chiefdom level. So let's do that for just this district, not the whole country. I clicked on this district, so it'll take me just for that district. It zoomed in, right? And shows me the chiefdoms in that district, that particular district. And you see that there are some green ones where things are going well. There's also one here, sorry, in the south that is not doing so well. So let's try and investigate further. So this is called Nieni, as we saw. It has 555%. I click again, And now I'll try to drill down one more step. Okay. I'm not sure if this shows us if this is helping us much, because this now is brown, which is actually medium. So what are we looking at here? We're looking at two circles, one big, one small. Those are the locations of two facilities. We can see what their names are, and we can see the values again by hovering. So this is 43.4, which is, well, it's a low rate, but it's not terrible. This is 50. It's also, that's medium. Both of them are medium. But the may be the case. What I'm guessing is the case here is that there's another facility with bad numbers, and we don't even have the coordinates. It doesn't show up. So that's another type of data quality issue, where you actually don't have the coordinates for all your facilities, but only for some of them. Okay, what do you do then if you don't have the coordinates for the facility? Well, one thing you can do now, of course, as most of you know, you have GPS capability on your phone. So you just go there and you actually get the coordinates, and you add that to the system. And I don't know if you saw that when you worked on org units on Tuesday, but you can actually enter the coordinates directly into the org unit for the org unit. It's much more complicated if you're talking about the district, because that's not the point. But for these, the placement of a hospital or a clinic or a health post, it's basically just X and Y. And you may also notice that down in the right-hand corner, we have longitude and latitude with even 5 decimals for this particular organizational unit. And that actually tells us that there is another option. Then you can get in the car and go there and read your GPS. Or if you know exactly where it is, it's where this river goes under the bridge, and that's the main road, and the health facility is just at that, just by the bridge, then you can actually make. Thank you. Could you touch it again? Yeah. Then you can actually look in Google. I mean, if you are online, you have Google Maps in the background, or OpenStreetMap. You can actually say, okay, here I see the road, here I see the river. I know it's there. So I can actually add the location directly in the map. In DHIS, I can say, okay, this facility should actually be here. So I can even sit, in anywhere, basically, as long as I know exactly where it is. But for most facilities, probably you don't know. But if you do, you can actually just use the background map to find the coordinates. And usually it doesn't matter if it's a few meters wrong. I mean, a facility is, of course, also a hospital is quite a big compound. So if you go 10 meters to the left or 10 meters to the right, that's just sort of where inside the compound you are. Usually we don't use this as the road map. I mean, you don't drive according to this DHIS map. So that's usually sufficient. Okay. So we've been looking a little bit at the thematic layers, but let's go back to something called the boundary layers. So you notice, so this is where I select what I want to see in the map. But over here is where I actually select up in the menu on the top left-hand side. That's where you actually choose what goes into each layer. So let me click on the icon that looks like a globe. Looks like the Earth. I say Edit Layer, and I get this. This you should recognize basically as the organizational hierarchy that we worked on 2 days ago. It is a bit mangled now because all of you have been working on it and you've been adding your own organization units, right? So there's the BP province and the BP district and the BP province again. That's usually not what you should see. Usually you will only see the country, which is Sierra Leone, and this part shouldn't be there. So just ignore that for now. You'll see also that we added El province and Kimotwe province, etc. These, as we know, are things that you have added, and that's great. We can see that you've actually done your work, but we didn't put in any maps for those, mainly because they don't exist. It's just a figment of our imagination, so we're not going to be able to map those provinces, unless, of course, you do provide some kind of coordinates for them. But fortunately, we know that some of these are real provinces, or real districts, I should say, in Sierra Leone. So a few of them, Bo, for example, is a Sierra Leone district. So, but let's start with the whole country. I'll start with Sierra Leone. So just select Sierra Leone, and then I have to select, so what do I want to see inside Sierra Leone? Okay, this button, then this drop-down list shows me all the levels that I have in the country. So I have the country, state, which, yeah, so let's call them states. They are actually called districts, but then city, I think people have been sort of changing the names of the levels. But it doesn't, I mean, you can call the levels whatever you want. These are not the names that are used in Sierra Leone, except country. But let me select the state level and do an update. So that looks a bit strange. I think we just remove the other thematic layer. Aha. Here is actually Sierra Leone. The map looked very strange now because someone, probably one of you, has actually added a health facility way out to the east of Sierra Leone. Here. And it's actually Boudica province that is located probably around Ethiopia or somewhere, but okay. So that's messing up a little bit. But as you see, if I hold the shift button, I hold the shift, and I zoom. I can then drag like this, drag a little square, and it'll zoom in. Or I can click on these buttons up here, plus to zoom in, minus to zoom out. Okay, so let me just zoom in to the country. Okay, so this is Sierra Leone with its 13 districts. Okay, but you see, notice this is just the outline. These are just the boundaries, including some islands down here. And how detailed this map will be depends a little bit on what you put into it. I think if we have time, we may look at how you set this up, but it's actually not something that everyone needs to do. It just needs to be done once for each country, and it's a little complicated. There's no use for everyone to spend a lot of time on the details of how to put it in. But what I wanted you to know is that there is a trade-off between how detailed the map is and how fast it will load. So you have to remember we are on the internet. Some users will not have a very fast internet. If you give them a very, very, very detailed map, it'll take a really long time for them to download on a slow line. So what we usually do is we get the map from the government, from the planning department or something, but we usually try to simplify it a little bit. You know, we don't need every little wrinkle down here, because it's not necessarily so important for our purpose, which is public health. Of course, we're not going to change your countries. The country remains the same, the background remains the same, but there's always this trade-off. How detailed do you want to see the map? Of course, if you're driving your car, you want a lot of detail. If you're looking at the country as a whole, you're more interested in, okay, how does this district look in comparison to that district? And even if you're missing one small wrinkle, you know, just because the river goes like this, you're mostly concerned about the main area of the river, not exactly every nook and turn of the river. And of course, to some extent, there's no limit to how detailed a map could be. In fact, there's a whole science about fractals that says that there is really no limit if you measure every stone and every. So that's really a trade-off that you do. Okay, so we see the names again. Now this is just the names, no values, because this is not a thematic layer. This is just the boundaries. Again, if I just hover, I will just see the name of that particular district. Okay. Just as we did before, we can drill down and just zoom into one particular district and see the next level of boundaries. Okay. And then at the bottom we will see the facilities. But I'd like to now add another layer, which is called the facility layer. So that's the second icon. That's slightly different, and it's mostly concerned with the lowest level. So let me sorry, we have to know first which province are we actually looking at, which district are we actually looking at. So let me zoom in again. So okay, so we see this. The name of this district is Koinadugu. Okay. Again, I can zoom in, drill down. Okay, so this is Koinadugu, just the boundaries. I'll now add the facilities. So I will select the health facility layer. I'll just ignore level 5 and 6 because they're just something that was created now. But I know that most of the facilities are at this level 4, the health facility layer. And then I have to say, okay, but what do I want to see here? What do I want to see at this level of the facilities? Well, as you may be able to see, we now get all the all the groups as all the groupings of that's not quite right. All the groupings of groups, all the group sets or dimensions, if you will. All the group sets that we created of organization units are now available. And you see there's a lot of them, and I don't know what are in all of those, so I'll pick one that I do know, and that's the type. So I'll just select type, and then I will select, as you remember, the name of this particular district was Koinadugu, so I'll just select that, and I'll do an update. Okay, so as you can see here, okay, a little bit, move it down a bit. Yeah, there's some issues with refresh. Basically, you'll see that there are these are the locations of all the facilities first. The second thing is you see that they have different icons according to the different types. The legend is still on the right-hand side. It shows you that you have mobile clinics. They are actually ambulances. You could have hospitals, but there doesn't seem to be any hospitals in this district. There are some community health clinics. They're the first one, and there are also some community health posts, just indicated by a doctor. So we have 3 types represented. And then I can go further and say, okay, those are the types that are available, but I'm actually only interested in the community health posts. And then I go to this selection. So you see the little cogwheel here on the left, this little symbol here? It allows you to choose what kind of selection method you're going to use. What kind of filtering are you going to use? So what we've been doing so far is really to select on the level, right? We selected the health facility level. But I can also select on groups. So now you start to see, I hope, how useful the groups can be. Because we create our own groups. Of course, we do create levels as well, but the levels are kind of defined by the ministry. It's not really something that you can manipulate very easily. They are quite well defined. But the groups, as you know, you can create any kind of groups. In this case, I am now interested, as I said, in just the doctors, and those doctors are called CHP. So I select groups here. And then in the drop-down box, I will have all the different groups that exist. And in our case, there's a lot because you've all been creating a lot of groups. But I'll just select the CHP. And then I'll, and maybe also the CHC. So I can select more than one. I select 2 groups, CHC, CHP, and then I update. And what happened? Well, it disappeared a bit, but you see that all the ambulances are gone. We sort of filtered them away because we made a selection to just concentrate. In this particular case, we're just interested in those community health clinics and community health posts. We don't worry about all those cars running around. So this shows me the exact location of those 2 types of facilities. And again, as usual, if I hover, I should be able to see the name of the particular health facility, right? I think it is now lunchtime. So I think we'll come back and look a bit more at GIS, but this gives you an overview. I think the most important is that you have different levels. You can go between them, and you can also use the groups within GIS. And we will see that we can use the groups also within the pivot tables and the charts. So the last thing I want to say before lunch is that up here in the menu, you see we're now in the map module, but this module is very closely connected to the chart module, which is called the data visualizer, and the table module, which is called the pivot tables. So you can easily move between all those 3. And that's what we're going to talk about after lunch. Okay. Sorry to keep you waiting. We'll wrap up the GIS first, and then we'll continue with the 2 related modules. That is the charting engine, also known as data visualizer, and the pivot table module. One thing you will notice is that we're trying to keep those 3 modules similar in concept and similar in user interface. They all use this the same, it's actually a JavaScript library that makes it look a bit more like a desktop application. And that allows also things that you don't always see in web applications, like these menus here that are expandable, for example, on the and the collapsible. So you see all these legend things on the right hand side. You can collapse, you can expand. The same with the, let me just pull up a map so you can see a bit more. I'll just select another map this time. So okay, this is a legend again. The difference with this legend and the previous ones that we looked at is this only has 5 classes, right? And as I said, this you can collapse this, you can expand it. You can also, if you want to have more room for just the map, you can click on these arrows and sort of just see the map. So you have the whole screen just for the map. So that's a feature in many parts of DHIS, that you can collapse certain menus to preserve your screen your screen real estate for the things that you're actually interested in. But often we'd like to actually see the legends, and we'd like to be able to see the different layers and switch them on and off. Okay? So if we now go inside this thematic layer, there are a couple of options that you have for each layer. You see you have layer 1, 2, 3, 4 buttons up in the left-hand corner. And one of the things you can do there is you can switch on labels. You remember I can just hover with my mouse and I will actually see the name and the value. But I can also switch on labels so that I always see them. Just show hide like this. It's not too easy to see maybe, but it can be useful to, especially when there is not that many, that you actually see the names at any time, and you can choose what color you want the labels to be. You can have you can have blue labels if you prefer, and bold and italic. But there's not so much. You cannot actually choose the font size currently. Okay, so that's one thing. Let me remove the labels again. I just remove them like this. The other thing you can do is you can filter and you can search. So, for example, I know that there is a district called. I actually get the whole list of districts here. I can say, okay, I want the ones that start with K for some reason. My name starts with K, so I want to look at the districts that start with K. Okay, so there are 4 of them, and if I click on one of them or several, they will highlight. This is not so useful with 13 districts, but it's quite useful with 1,000 facilities. You know, like where is this facility? I don't see it. Can't find it. So there is the filtering and search. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it, but I just want to show you one more thing about the classes. So the classes are configurable in several ways. First of all, you can choose how many classes do you want. So by default, DHIS gives you 5 classes. And by default, the one endpoint is red and the other endpoint is bright green. Just exactly as you see here. These are sort of the default colors. Let me change the colors. I like to go from blue to green instead. And then there's an update button at the bottom. And now I basically just changed the coloring to something I find more useful, more beautiful. I can also say, well, I don't really care about all these different variety. I actually just want 2 classes. Again, I click on update. And it'll group everything into the blues and the greens. 7 of the blue and 6 of the green. Just a very rough partitioning. And the blue goes from 37.7 to 66.0. And the green goes from 66.0 up to 94.3. So how did those numbers appear? Well, basically, it looks at all the values. apparently for this data set, the highest value, the maximum value is 94.3 and the minimum is 37.7. And because I've selected to have only 2 classes, and I've selected that the method, this is the default, is to have equal intervals, it basically tries to divide. So how much is this? This is the range from 37.7 to 94.3 is 65 or something. No, yeah, no, it's less than 60, 50, 56, whatever, and it divides that into 2. The other option that I have is equal counts. Okay, let me just increase to 3 classes, so we'll see a bit better. Come on. Okay, now I have 3 classes. Again, it just divides that interval into 3 equal parts. And we end up with 4 in the bottom class, 6 in the middle, and 3 in the top class, right? Based on that division that was made, just taking the range and chopping it up in equal intervals. The other way that you can get it automatically is that you can select that you want the class breaks to be defined in such a way that the number of things that fall into each class is approximately the same. Of course, if it's not divisible by 3, you have 3 classes and it's not divisible by 3, you can't have exactly the same number in each class, but you can have approximately the same. So if I change to equal interval, sorry, not equal intervals, but equal counts. Equal counts means it'll try to put as many, about the same in every class. So now the boundaries have changed slightly to enable the application to put 4 in the first box, 4 in the second box, and 5 in the last box. Right? So it tries to, either it just takes equal classes, or it says, okay, I'll adjust the boundaries so that there'll be about the same number in each class. So I know that the third will be in the bottom class, the third will be in the middle class, and the third will be in the top class, approximately. But of course they are integers and not fractions. The number of polygons has to be an integer. Okay. So you've seen both the colors and the types of class. And then there's another feature, which is these numbers here. If you don't have polygons but you have points, the points can be represented as circles. The circles can have colors, but they can also have a size. So you can actually vary the size according to the value. So if I rather drill down now, if I select just one district, and instead of going at the regional level, I go down to the down to the health facility level, and again I do an update. You'll see that I get circles instead of polygons, because these are actually points. The color, the circles have different colors, different colorings. And they also have different sizes. Most of them are the same size, but this one is a lot bigger. This one is also a little bit bigger. So you can vary both the size and the color with the points. And in fact, if you want to make the contrast bigger, you can increase this high number and update again. Okay. That's not so good. Yeah. File or unit. Okay, sorry. I switched the org unit to one non-existing province that someone has created. G1 province A doesn't exist. So I have to go back to Bo. Okay. Now you see that I made the contrast between the small circles and the big circles greater. the big circles will be bigger, in fact. So this is something you can also manipulate, how big you want the big circles to be. There's of course a limit to how small the small circles can be, but you can also manipulate that. I mean, you can decrease it to 1 maybe and see if maybe we don't see them anymore. Yeah. So now the small circles are really small and the big circles are really big. Okay. So it's a combination of coloring, and of course if you only care about the size, you can select the same color for maximum and the same color for minimum, basically, and they will all be, then it'll only be the size that matters and no color, right? So only the size matters. Maybe it's confusing to have both color and size, because then it looks like you're trying to do two things at the same time. So this, of course, you can combine it. I mean, now it's just, I don't have the Google map because I'm offline, and I don't even have the boundaries, but of course I can switch on the boundaries again to, well, I don't have the boundaries, but then I have to select them again. So lastly, legend type. All you see now is automatically generated legends. I mean, they're not completely automatic, because I have to say how many classes do I want, what is the color range I want, but there are default options for these. So it actually is, automatic. If you want to change something, obviously you have to change it. But there is one other possibility that was actually used in the previous examples we saw before lunch. You remember we had 7 classes ranging from red, and then blue meant invalid. That was something that had been predefined. So I have the automatic legends, or I have the predefined legends. So if I switch to predefined, the menu on the left-hand side changes. All these options that I had where I could choose the size and the color and the number of classes, all of that disappears. And the only thing I can select is one of the predefined legends. That means you have to define the legends before you can use them, obviously. Fortunately, in this case, we have some predefined legends. And they have been given names that hopefully are memorable. So there's one legend for ANC coverage, another one for death rate, one for diarrhea, one for immunization coverage, etc., and one for reporting rates. And it was one of those that was used when we looked at maps before lunch. So I can try to just select one ANC coverage and do an update, see what happens. Okay, you may now, if you're able to see, how many people are actually able to see what's written here? Just get a show of hands. People on the first row, yes, that's good. And some people even pretty far back, okay. They have facilitators that are helping them? Okay, excellent. So basically this is the same legend that we were looking at before lunch. Now that legend looks different because it's applied at the facility level rather than at the district level, which we were looking at before lunch. But again, it will look similar if I float up. I can click on this facility, and I can float up. Just before I float up, I also want to show you that it's slightly different. When there is a point, when there is a health facility, this context menu that shows up has more options than it had. If you remember with the polygons, we could only drill down or float up. Here we can not drill down because this is the lowest level where we have any coordinates. We can float up, of course, to the chiefdom and the district and the country. We can also do 2 other things. This is not something every user should do, of course, because you can relocate. You can say, well, this one should actually be over here. It's moved. We moved it, or it's actually wrong. I mean, it was placed in the wrong location. There's also an option to switch the east and the north, the longitude and the latitude, because we see in some cases people have placed something in the ocean because they mixed up what is longitude and what is latitude. So this is sort of administrative functionality for people who are basically looking at the data quality of the coordinates. You see that obviously, you know, this person mixed up the latitude and the longitude, so instead of putting it in Sierra Leone, they put it in, in Brazil or something, just because of the switch of the longitude and latitude. And most importantly, you can show some more information about this specific facility. So if I select that, show more information, what you get is a pop-up window like this. Doesn't show that much information. It shows that the name, it shows the parent, so which district is it, or chiefdom, the code, and it shows what we call infrastructural data. But you have to select a period. And I don't know if there is any infrastructural data for this particular one, but we can try to see for 2013. Yes. So basically what it shows is, so it shows the total population, the under 5 years, the expected pregnancies, etc. for this particular facility. So where does it get those data? Well, you have to assign one particular data set. You choose one particular data set to be that infrastructural data. And you say, okay, so outside of GIS, the GIS module, you say, okay, when in the GIS module, when I click on a particular facility, I want to see this data set. So you can see any kind of data that you want to see can be displayed inside GIS, but you have to configure the DHIS so to choose what data is going to show up inside when you click on a particular facility. Yes. Can you combine data sets? Showing more than one data set? Currently, I don't think you can do that. We are always open to discuss new features. I think there are several things that is actually, we already have a long list of things that we want to implement, to add to the the GIS module. And there will actually be quite a few new things coming in the next version of DHIS, but the 2.15 version. But I don't remember exactly what they are right now. But that's currently you can only choose one data set. So let's go back a little bit. Of course, without the background layer from Google, it's easy to lose track of where you are. But what I was going to do was to drill up, float up, sorry. Yes. So the question is there an option to make the maps available offline? Yes and no. So the background maps, in this case, come from these web services that Google offers or OpenStreetMap offers. What you can do is, if you're online for a while, you make sure you download everything in your browser. The browser will actually cache your background pictures. The squares that Google provides will actually be cached in your browser for some time. I'm not exactly sure what happens if you move to another part of the application or if you shut it down, the browser. I think it'll be not available in the next time you open the browser. But you could keep it open for quite some time. Yes. Right. And they're always offline. If they're online, it's slow and tedious. Yeah. No, this is a challenge. I mean, I think we could probably. It's one of the things we could look into with certainly. There are several possibilities we could do. We could store the images from Google somehow. I mean, you do that. I don't know if you try the Google map on your phone. You can actually select an area and store it to use it offline. I think doing that for us would actually contravene the license that Google provides. You're not allowed to do that. On the other hand, we also have this OpenStreetMap, which is completely available and open, and you can do whatever you want. So I think it's actually feasible, especially with the OpenStreetMap part. But we would have to do a little bit of work for it to be there. But it's actually a very good request, because as you say, quite often, including in this training session, we will be offline, so we will not really have those background maps. So it's a nice request, and we should look into it. Maybe we can get it in the next version. Currently, you cannot. You notice one more thing here, perhaps. There's a hole. This country has a hole, or this district has a hole, and this district is like a Swiss cheese with a hole here, but of course the district doesn't have a hole. I mean, it could be a lake or something, but it isn't. There is actually supposed to be a chiefdom here as well. The reason it doesn't show up is there's no data for this particular indicator, this particular period. There's no data, so that's why it doesn't show up. This is actually quite a nice feature when you put layers on top of each other. Then you can easily see what's behind there, and it also shows you very easily where you're lacking data. Maybe they didn't report, so you don't know, right? For this particular month or this particular year, 2013, they never reported for this particular indicator, so you're just lacking the data. No data for this time period. That's right. So the two blue ones? Yes, sorry, you can't hear. So the question is, what's the difference between no data and invalid? So invalid means there is data, but we, or you as the administrator, has defined that whenever the value exceeds 120, and this is percentage, right? When it's more than 120%, then we put it in the invalid box. DHS doesn't know this. It's just us, because we have created this legend, we created this legend, and we gave the name invalid. Okay, so that's the last thing I'm going to show you. That's how do we create those legends. So you see there's or maybe just before I show that, I show this one thing I forgot, and that's download. You know, you can download this map as a PNG. So I can say, Knut's map. I can choose between PDF and PNG. I can download. It comes here, it adds the title and it adds the legend. So now this is a picture. I can put it in my Word document, in my PowerPoint, Excel, wherever I want to use it, and just have a snapshot of it. Of course, if I really like it, I should also save it as a favorite. Okay, I do two things. I can download the picture, or I can go back and save it as a favorite. And I showed you how to create favorites, but I can show favorites that exist, but I can also have a new one, and I say this is Knut's new favorite. Of course, you should give it a more descriptive name, but and then if I filter, I search for Knut KN, and there it comes, Knut's new favorite. So I'll always have it. Yes, please. Okay, we'll have more on favorites and more about dashboards later. So the last thing, as I said, is the legend. So in many cases, you're happy with the automatic legend. You just select the colors, you select the number of classes, and it's fast. But if you want something that's really, particular, and this is, for malaria, it has to be these colors for this interval and these colors for that interval. And I mean, sometimes it's also confusing because sometimes a high value is good. Sometimes a high value is very bad. You know, number of cholera cases, high value, very bad. Number of children vaccinated, high value is very good, right? So maybe you want to use red for the bad values, but then you have to choose, is it the high or is it the low? Really something you have to consider. So basically, here we have 5 predefined legends. You can add a new one, or we can just look at one that exists. So this is one that exists. And basically, this is the same as the one we're looking at here. So in this, I choose the color for each. First, I have to choose how many classes I want, right? I add the classes. I can add, there are already 7, but if I want, I can add a number 8. I just say add new. Sorry, I have to give it a name. So I say this is Knut's class, and it starts at 1000 and goes to 2000. And it should have the, I don't know, the purple color, and I'll just add it. Okay? So now instead of this having 7 classes, it'll have 8 classes because I've added the Knut class at the end with 1000, from 1000 to 2000. So now this becomes available to choose from. Please, question. Exact. Oh yeah. Okay. Okay. You're asking if it's 1000, is it in this one or this one? And I think it's in this one. I don't remember. But it is in one of them. Yeah. It's not in both. And it's a bit confusing. But I think. Yeah, you can try it, or it should be in the documentation. I don't remember. Sorry. But of course, it's a good question. Yes. Another question. It's from, yeah, so this is from 0 to 40, yes? So you mean if it's exactly 40, it comes in this one? The dialogue here?
Yes, I mean that the lower start from value 0 to 40. So
Yes.
the system will will find the number from 0 to 40.
Yes.
And the next is medium, with not to find the 40, it will find 41.
Right.
Yeah, I think.
So yeah, so I mean that's the question. I mean, if it's 40.1, it'll fall in this class for sure. The question is, what if it's 40.0 or 40.000 or just 40? And I don't remember, but it's in one of them. It's not in both. That's very important, and of course it's important which one it is. But you can actually test it. Why don't you test it and see where it ends up? I think that's all I'm going to say. I've been talking for a long time already. So Morten now is going to go through the 2 other buttons. So let's repeat. On the top here we have 2 buttons, one called table, one called chart, and of course the one called map, which is the current one. So you see that these modules are very closely related. If I expand this, I can do two different things. I can just simply go to pivot tables, which is just like selecting it in the ordinary menu. It'll just give me the view. Or I can say I want exactly this data. I already spent a lot of time selecting this data, so I'd like to carry them with me into the table. So I can open this map as a table. Similarly, the other button is chart. I can just go to charts, or I can say, well, I'd like to see this data in my chart. At least I like to start with that. So I don't have to start from scratch. Already made the selection. Please give me the selection inside the charts. If you have any questions while Morten is setting up, please. Yes.
We would appreciate like if you can give us a demo how we can overlay our own maps into SOCAD, like
You mean like Bhutan maps?
different mapping organism uses different projection.
Yes. Okay. So yeah, I'll just talk a little bit about that. So all the maps in DHIS have to have the same projection, which is sort of in some ways the non-projection. It's just latitude, longitude. But very often, I mean, all professional map agencies will actually probably give you your maps in what's called a different projection, usually the universal UTM projection. So in the documentation, we have a description on how to convert from the projection that you have into the projection that we need for DHIS, which is the same projection that Google uses. Okay, there is a tool, a free tool that you can download that helps you do that. And the thing is, this is relatively big field. It's quite complicated. There's no point in everyone knowing how to do that because it only needs to be done one time for every country, for each country. So what we can do is to sit with those of you who have to do that for your country. I mean, some of you already have the maps. Some of you will need to do it. I've already talked to a couple of people who need to do that. We'll find time to do that during this week or beginning of next week to actually import your shape files, as they're called, and set up the maps for your country. Including the location of your facilities if you have those. But that's kind of a separate thing. It's a one-time thing, so we don't go through it for everyone. I think it'll be boring for most of you, but very interesting for some.